Okay, so in this video, we're going to talk about how using software like Orchestra can help data teams manage multiple environments and therefore isolate production environments from any data quality issues that arrive in staging environment. This means that you basically always keep the data in your prod completely clean. The worst that can possibly happen to it using an architecture like this is that it gets out of date, provided you've written all the data quality tests. So before going into Orchestra, let's take a look at the kind of infrastructure we expect you to have. So if you look at the sort of warehouse area, you probably have maybe like a database.schema.source. And then you also have maybe a database.schema.table. In this example, this would be in the same account. So the same Snowflake account, the same BigQuery account. And it could be in a different one to what you have in prod. It just depends on how literally you want to sort of interpret having a separate environment. The important thing is that the data that users use and users see is different from the data where you calculate incremental changes. And when I say different, I don't mean the data itself is different. I mean, they're identically different things. They are otherwise exact replicas of the same thing. So from a governance perspective, the data engineering user that's in charge of pushing data from various sources over here into Snowflake, they would probably have access to this sort of like sources area. You probably have like an analytics team or an analytics user that then maybe has access to DBT, something like that. And they have responsibility for everything in the staging area. This is where you'd have all of your analytical modeling layers, like bronze, silver, and gold if you're doing the medallion architecture. And then finally, the sets of tables or the sets of data assets that end users see sits separately to here. And using most modern warehouses, you can reliably and pretty cost effectively clone the data, and that basically just means your costs are lower, but you get the benefit of having a separate table, basically. And the important point here from the governance point of view is that the only user that's allowed to do that, or the only entity that has the role that's allowed to do that, is the prod user. And you ensure that the prod user cannot really be accessed by anyone apart from account superadmins. So because Orchestra interacts with tools like your data warehouse, like DBT, provided we can give you access to, I guess, a configuration for accessing DBT that only allows it to access stuff in staging, and we can give you a configuration to access your warehouse area that's only allowed to do stuff in prod, we can basically enable this pattern in a really easy way. So if we head over to pipelines, head over to integrations, we can see that we already have the Snowflake prod account set up. So if I go ahead and manage that, we can see that this Orchestra user already has everything in it. And that Orchestra user basically corresponds to the prod agent. So, no one has access to the Orchestra password apart from superadmins, and that's the only thing that can update data into prod. We'll also have our kind of DBT Cloud prod instance, which I'm calling prod, but here it's technically staging. And if we weren't using DBT and we were just running Snowflake queries, then what we would do is we'd set up a new connection, we'd head over to Snowflake. But importantly, this would be something like staging, right? And the user could probably be the same user, but maybe the role would be sort of like staging role, and it would only have access to the staging warehouse, and fundamentally it would only have access to perhaps the same database, but it would only have access to the staging schema, of which there could be many. So yeah,